Welcome one, welcome all. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. It is Tuesday, December 20th, 2022, 7:01 p.m. Central Standard Time. That means that we are live on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel for our weekly BTB Roundtable. You can, of course, join us live. You can catch us after the fact at your own convenience. You can always listen to this show on the Blog and the Boys podcast network at your own audio perusal as well. My name is RJ Ochoa. Tonight, I will be playing the role of Santa Claus. I have basically 12 of the reindeer, all of the 100 elves joining me on this particular roundtable. King Arthur had nothing on the size of this mahogany piece of wood. Let's go ahead and go in clockwise order if you are watching us on YouTube. Tony Catalina came in a standard Santa Claus hat, not a Cowboys themed one, so I can't give you points for that. Antonio, how are you doing on this particular Tuesday evening?
I'm feeling good. It's the week of Christmas. I'm ready to go.
It's great to see that your internet is still slightly delayed like it has been over the last couple of weeks, so we're dealing with that already. Fumble out the gate, no big deal. We'll power through. Brandon Loree, basically come to be known as B2 around here. The platform that we use has centered you. That was not me. That was just the way the platform did it. You're looking sharp. The audio audience cannot see. Is that a salmon, maybe light red colored shirt and an actual red polka dotted tie? 10 out of 10. They say dress to the nines, but that is a 10.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually red, and it's a tie that has Christmas hats and candy canes on it. It's a little far away, but yeah, I tried doing all Christmas stuff.
Well done. David Howman, not my old roommate from college, Nico, you are here. And by the way, Kevin has given us 5 points to everyone dressed in Cowboys gear. That would include Tony Catalina. That would include you. And I'm not going to go through all the rest of the names so I don't spoil things for the podcast audience. But David Howman, you're wearing an ugly Dallas Cowboys Christmas sweater. How long have you had that one in the chamber?
I've had it for a while, and not only am I wearing the sweater, but I have these gloves, but the gloves are off for tonight. So we're going to have a good show tonight.
The
done.
Arctic
5
Blast
points for you, Howman. 5 points for
coming. Dave Sturchio was, I don't know who Sturch was fired up at. Maybe it was you, Danny Phantom. You and Sturch have kind of developed into foils for one another. Do you feel that way, Danny? Do you feel some sense of consternation between you and Dave?
No, I think he's just always kind of just amped up, and I don't know. I think just lately we've kind of been at ends a little bit. So I didn't know. I don't have any gloves at all. So
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Sturch, do you feel, Sturch, who you're here with us also, like you're kind of making a straw man argument? Like nobody's really arguing with you. You just want to fight. That's how I feel like I'm just going to unlock the cage and you're going to come out guns blazing.
Listen, for every time I've ever tuned into this show, it's always like, hey, this and that and ha la la, and everybody's kumbaya. Guys, somebody's got to bring the fire, right? Somebody's got to bring the fire and light a fire under all your keisters tonight, boys.
Well, you know what, Sturch? I don't believe you have done a roundtable with Chris Halling, one of our newer members here around Blog and the Boys. Everybody can follow him on Instagram, Dallas Cowboys Squad, one of the best Cowboys fan pages on the IG. Chris, I don't know if you're a bigger homer than Sturch or not. Like the two of you are kind of going to go neck and neck, I think, for that title here tonight. Are you here to tell us how the Cowboys are not going to lose a single game from here on through the Super Bowl?
You're exactly right. They are not losing one more game the rest of the season. They are winning the Super Bowl. So...
wanted you
I'm a confident guy.
Understand one another. All right, here we go. Aidan Davis finally took some time away from joining the corporate world. You hear him every Monday on First and 10. Aidan, congratulations on graduating college. You're the smartest kid in town. What's it like paying taxes?
It's horrible. IRS is underrated. Those guys deserve some appreciation too. Christmas time, got to give love to everybody. Shout out to the IRS.
Does he work for the
IRS listeners?
Wow, negative 10 points for Aidan Davis. Brandon Clements, B1, you are wearing a Christmas sweater, I think, or some sort of sweater. Can you explain to us what it is?
It's a Christmas tree. It looks like you can't really see here, but it's a gingerbread house. I've had it in the chamber, as you say, for a few years. My wife got it for me, so it was for a work thing. So I brought it out for the occasion tonight.
Good for you, Brandon. So a couple of things. Johnny Boy here with us says hitting the eggnog early tonight. I've asked everyone to bring cards because it is a full house, so the podcast audience is going to miss out on this. Agree or disagree? Eggnog is good. You all have cards to show us how you feel. Thanks to all of the voices in the room. We've got Chris Halling says agree. Aidan agree. Sturch and Brandon didn't understand the question. Thank you, Brandon. Agree. Tony agree. Everyone except Sturch put up a card.
Why? Can I answer why?
I mean,
I've never had a sip of eggnog in my life.
Okay.
So how the hell am I supposed to give an accurate response?
You're not missing out.
Well,
There
that's
you
what I'm
go.
saying. And your card was upside down, by the way.
Aidan, Kevin has taken away 5 points from you for saying the IRS is underrated. Skylar has taken away 5 points from you for being away so long that they forgot what you look like. In fact, is that a different background? I can't even remember at this point in time. It's been so long.
This is my parents' house. So
okay. You know what? Well, you got to save up.
Plus 5 for spending time with family by chance?
There you go.
No, that's not how we roll. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. We kind of have
family.
We kind of have to touch on this Jaguars loss. We have a lot to get into when it comes to this Saturday Christmas Eve game against the Philadelphia Eagles, but the tenor of Cowboys Nation is fragile right now. Dave Sturchio, I'm going to start with you. You said something on 1st and 10 this week that I thought was actually, a little bit of cold, hard truth that I think some people need to hear, and it's that the Cowboys fans can be kind of weak, can be kind of soft. And the Cowboys fans, some of them are overreacting a little bit to what we saw in Jacksonville. It was bad. It was embarrassing. It was frustrating. There are no excuses for it. But Sturch, I'll start it off with you. How are we feeling? Panicked? Not worried at all? Where are you at on the concern spectrum?
There's no reason to be panicked over a 10-win team. Let's start off by saying that, right? 10-win team, there's only 6 other teams outside of us that have 10 wins or more. That means the rest of the league stink, right? When I look at this Dallas Cowboys team, and specifically this past Sunday, I'm not worried per se. We've seen this song and dance, right? We've seen them underachieve in certain games and not show up for certain situations. But overall, 10 wins is 10 wins, man. And we've rattled off a lot of improbable wins. Guys, remember, we would have never been in this situation if it wasn't for the defense. I saw takes about how they hate the defense. I'm like, what are we talking about here? And then I saw takes about how, we're underachieving. Again, Cooper Rush for a month. You know what I mean? Like, this team is, to me right now, is in a position with everything about developing, which we'll get into tonight. But there's a so far outside chance that we could be singing the division title back to back. I know it's a very, very far off chance, but again, you got to assume that after this, and the only reason why I say no panic, and I know this is a long-winded answer, I'm sorry, but the reason why I say don't panic, they lost that first game, ripped off 4 straight. They lost another game, ripped off 2 straight. They lost another game, ripped off another 4 straight. So this team responds to adversity and the struggles, and I'm well prepared to eat crow next week if they drop one to Philly, but I got a good feeling.
In all likelihood, the Jalen Hurts list, Philadelphia Eagles. We will touch on that, obviously. Jess Navarro's fellow BTBer has joined to deliver points. Jessica Claus. Jess Claus is hard to say, Jess, so sorry. Jessica Claus is a little bit easier. Skylar notes that Jess is in the house. Johnny Boy says, preach, Sturch. The 1st and 10 boys threw down yesterday. Everybody can listen to 1st and 10 once again on the Blog of the Boys podcast network. Aidan, you were there. You mistakenly said that the Cowboys were underdogs against the Eagles. You quickly recovered thanks to your 1st and 10 mates. That line has actually grown for various reasons. Do you agree with Sturch, or are you kind of like, Sturch, I love you, man, but like there are some legitimate things to be a little bit teeny bit concerned by?
I agree with Sturch in terms of the talent on this team. I firmly believe that after what I've seen, if the Cowboys play a full 4 quarters of football, they are by far the best team in the NFL, and I'll say that with my chest. The issue is getting those consistent 4 quarters has been, we haven't seen it since the Vikings game, and so that's what's concerning me is heading into playoff time. If you want to win the Super Bowl, you're going to have to put together 16 straight quarters of good football. The Cowboys can't put together 2 lately. So I think this team, I'm not panicking. I just need to see some consistency going forward before playoffs.
Chris, I mentioned it. You're feeling very optimistic in this team. AJ gave Sturch 5 points and said our losses weirdly have come to 3 below 500 teams and Philly. And even then, the Philly game was with Cooper Rush at quarterback. So do you share this sentiment that this is some sort of aberration and exception? This isn't really who the Cowboys are, at least the second half team we saw in Jacksonville?
I have no panic about the actual loss per se on the record. I do have a little bit of worry about some of these positions that did hurt us during the game, like Kelvin Joseph. He really struggled losing Leighton Vander Esch. I'm kind of concerned about how they're going to defend the run game without Leighton Vander Esch in the game. So there's aspects to the Cowboys that I'm worried about right now, but I still think that they have so much talent and they really should be able to put it together and make a deep playoff run.
By the way, Chris, that new microphone sounds very sharp, just so you know. You sound nice, crisp, and clean. Danny Phantom, it feels like you've been waiting. McCarthy, slip up, dude, slip up. I'm ready to pounce. I wanted to keep doing it. And so Mike McCarthy and his Cowboys, they blew a 14-point lead in the 4th quarter alone to the Green Bay Packers, the House of Horrors, Mike McCarthy's former team. They blew a 17-point lead against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so Kevin says, look, I'm going to take 5 points away from Sturch because I understand what's going on here, but they have now done this not once, but twice. So where do you fall, Danny? Are you a little bit more like, hey, guys, this is a bigger deal than we're all making it out to be?
No, I agree with Kevin. I think the answers are getting better as we move away towards Sturch. I do think that I am concerned. I'm not panicking, but I'm concerned because I don't believe in Mike McCarthy. I haven't. I'm not waiting for this moment. I'm hoping this moment never comes. But we're coming off 2 games where people say 1 game. The Houston game also happened. And we have to remember that too. I think that was our time where we're like, all right, we escaped. Now let's come out and have our statement game. And then there was Jacksonville. And so to me, I'm concerned with the present state of the team. And I'm concerned with I feel like McCarthy doesn't know how good his team's not. And he's just saying how confident he is. And everybody's just, fist bumping and stuff. And I just feel like there's work to be done. He's not seeing it. And to me, that's a big problem. And it's the same problem that I've had with them, and nothing's changed. So yeah, I'm a little down on things right now.
Howman, Danny said that, okay, we all thought the Cowboys would kind of bounce back and throttle Jacksonville. They did. I mean, they lost, but they did. I mean, they put up the performance early on, and the whole game counts, but they did kind of show up and show out, for the most part. And then the bad part happened. But you wrote today, the McCarthy Chronicles, something that I thought was interesting. You are starting to somewhat doubt Mike McCarthy yourself, and I am very upset about that because you and I have been on this island together.
Yeah, well, I've been singing McCarthy's praises for a while now, and now it's become a point. Danny mentioned not only the Jaguars game, the Houston game, but there was also the Colts game. They had that great fourth quarter, but before that, they were losing to the Colts, the Jeff Saturday Colts. And 3 weeks in a row now, they have flirted with disaster. They've come out. The first 2 games, they came out and started horribly. Then they picked it up, and then against Jacksonville, to your point, they started out great. But then they finished the game horribly. And it's not just about how you start, it's about how you finish. So 3 weeks in a row, they have come against 3 teams that they were supposed to easily beat those teams. They played around with their food. They played down to their opponent's level. And 2 of those 3 times they were able to escape. And then this time they actually got burned. To me, I'm hoping that I'm wrong. And I hope that Mike McCarthy turns around and proves me right for all my belief all year. But at this point, I was looking for them to respond after the Texans game being a near scare. And the Jaguars were a team that if you didn't play the way that they're capable of, they were going to beat you. That happened. And I just have to come back to when are the Cowboys going to stop overlooking teams? Because it's been going on for a while. I thought McCarthy was starting to change the tide. Clearly it has not happened yet. So I need to see that from him in order to get that trust back from me.
Brandon Clements, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about tonight, Danny agreed, by the way. You all can, good point, Danny. Danny picks up some points. You can agree or disagree with people as they speak. That was kind of the whole purpose of the card. So once again, thank you to Danny Phantom. You were dubbed the Scrooge of the group a little while ago in the chat. Sorry. But Brandon Clements, you said you were a glass half full guy. What is the glass half full perspective here? Because the agreement happening is kind of the glass half empty. There's no eggnog here. This is 49% eggnog as far as we're all concerned.
The Cowboys are 10-4, like Sturch was saying. I mean, they've had a great season. They won a handful of games with a backup quarterback, and they had to slip up against the Jags. But to be honest with you, the Jags I think are coming along at the wrong time. I mean, if they would have came along a little bit sooner, they could be looking really at the playoffs at this point. I think they're a better team than what their record suggests. I think Trevor Lawrence is a talented player, and he's finally showing what people thought of him as a first overall pick, a few years back. That team's going to be they're going to be good going forward. So it was a tough loss given how it played out with the pick 6 at the end of the game. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, regardless of record, that they're a team on the up and up. So I mean, I'm not really concerned about the loss. I think we just have to work through these injuries. I'd like to see some more. I want to see some things shaken up in that secondary. I want to see Kendall Sheffield. I want to see. I forget the other guy's name off the top of my head, but Sheffield's one of the guys that I want to see. I want to see DeRon Bland. I want to see him. Actually, I want to see him on the outside. I think he can do it. And I think the cornerback depth is a concern, but I'd like to see some of the other guys come in and play because obviously Calvin Joseph's not the answer. Calvin Joseph just needs to stay off the field, aside from maybe special teams. But Nashawn Wright, I think, I thought he did okay. There was a few sequences that he looked okay. So I'd like to see a little bit more out of him. I feel like at this point I've seen enough out of Calvin Joseph to, I like the Cowboys did. So he's sitting on the pine. So, but again, Nashawn Wright I want to see more of. Trayvon Mullen. That's what I was thinking of. That's another player he's a former second round pick. He's got enough juice, I think, to come in and help, and he's definitely an upgrade over Calvin Joseph. I mean, that's not really saying much, but I think Trayvon could play the outside. You could play Nashawn Wright inside, outside. Keep Calvin Joseph on the bench, and then if you need to throw Wright in, I think that helps matters down the line. But I don't think he needs to be in the game. I think the concern at this point is injuries, and Leighton Vander Esch, luckily he avoided a serious injury to his neck. We all know about the issues there. It's a stinger, or a shoulder stinger, right shoulder. So I just want to see him healthy at this point, and I think the nice part about where we are in the season, there's just a few games left in the year to put the pieces together. I think Trayvon Mullen needs to play some significant snaps. I do think Kendall Sheffield needs to see some snaps, just because they got to piece this together, because regardless of who's under center, Gardner Minshew is still a pretty good quarterback for the Eagles. I think he's one of the best backups in the league. So regardless, they're going to have a good test this weekend against AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
B2, aka Hugh Grant's character in Love Actually, based on how you're addressed tonight. Johnny Boy RN says, when a team gives up a 17-point lead and can't close out the game after recovering a fumble with 1 minute and 30 seconds left, it is concerning. I lean on coaching there. We might as well have the discussion. And then, Tony, I promise your time is coming. What did you make of the decision to go for it on 3rd and 10? Because I do think that is the difference in this coaching staff versus the previous one, right? Let it all hang out. Go for it. You all are eligible, by the way, to hold your signs up. Once again, points to Danny. So Danny agrees with the decision to go for it on 3rd and 10 to throw the ball. We can debate, obviously, what the best execution was there. But B2, it's such a confusing thing. Do you like that disposition? Do you trust that disposition moving forward, the coaching staff that's going to let it all hang out?
I like the aggressive play calling, but have a better play called, I think, in that situation. To me, I would have thrown on 1st down, possibly, but then again, you're back behind the sticks on the first play, losing 3 yards. You're already trying to figure out what to do. So I think I like the aggressive mentality. The defense at that point was already banged up. So the Jags were not showing any signs of slowing down. So I understand that you want to get ahead of your opponent in that situation. But to me, you have to throw the ball to a better player than Noah Brown. And that's nothing against Noah Brown and the type of game that he had. I just would prefer to go with somebody like a Michael Gallup, a Dalton Schultz, a CeeDee Lamb, some guy who at least is proven to be in that type of situation, a big ball receiver. Noah Brown has caught great passes in the clutch times of games, the Bengals game specifically. But I just think when you throw to him, there's a lot more things that can go wrong. And we talked about this on the Writer's Block podcast, with Jess and Dave that came out this morning, how I think Kellen Moore, he is a good play caller. I don't think he's great. I think there's a separation between him with the other guys like an Andy Reid, a Sean McVay, these guys who have been there, done it. To me, it's the situational play calling. He needs to get a little bit better. We saw the 4th down call in Green Bay. Like, come up with better game plans to get your guys in the best position. The game sealing interception play, I thought was a great call. It's just Noah Brown dropped the ball. So, like, he's shown that he can do it. I just need, in that type of situation, when you're trying to run out the clock, figure out a better play to call in that situation.
That's well said. All right, Grant G 1971. I saw your super chat. Don't worry, but I wanted to save it for Tony Catalina because Tony, you've kind of turned a bit of a tide. A year ago at this time, we were sitting here, we were talking about maybe drawing the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs, and you said, I want them. You said, it's about pure, total disrespect. I think so lowly of them that I want the Cowboys to face the Eagles in the playoffs. And then you kind of wanted the 49ers that blew up in all of our faces, obviously. Listening to you on 1st and 10, you're kind of walking back some faith in this team. And you're kind of walking back some faith in the aggression of this team that Brandon just lauded. Do you wish this team was more conservative? Do you feel like that's the better direction for them to go in?
I mean, I like aggression, and I think understanding what they do and how they handle things this is what they are, and this is what they've been over the last few years. I think there's a time and a place for everything, right? I think that 3rd and 10, why I disagree is, yes, it's a kill shot. If you hit it, it's big time. We're sitting here talking about it in a very positive manner, but there was such a low chance of that hitting in that moment where there are other things that are just a better play. I mean, if they can burn their time out there, just simply make them burn their time out. It's a totally different ball game. I think it's a whole situation handled differently. I don't walk back on this team. I'm still bullish on this team. I mean, like Sturt said, I mean, they're 10-4. They're a good football team. Let's not confuse this. What we are seeing though is a team that has some concerns, some things that we knew, talked about, and discussed all the time, that injuries were going to be a problem. Now those injuries are coming, to the forefront a little bit, and it's, it's a tough situation to sit here and say, we lose. I agree. I'm not. Anthony Brown isn't a world-beating cornerback, but if you lose Anthony Brown, the wheels shouldn't fall off the secondary, right? I mean, I think he's had an up and down season, but now we're sitting here saying, hopefully it's Mullins, hopefully it's Sheffield, hopefully it's, Alexander. Like, we're just looking for anybody to solidify the second cornerback spot. So there are weaknesses. I mean, we saw what this team looked like when Leighton Van Der Esch went out. They couldn't stop the run. Now we got Hankins out. So there are some things and some concerning signs moving forward. But all that being said, this Eagles game, I don't care if it's, Jalen Hurts or anybody else out there playing quarterback. If they win this football game, I think you should feel really good about that. And, moving forward, we'll see what happens.
Okay, Tony, you inspired this question. We'll go in clockwise order here. So we'll start with you. For you panelists, you do have your agree, disagree cards. Is this the lowest, the way we're talking about right now, Tuesday, December 20th, 7:22 p.m. Central Standard Time? Is this the lowest that you have thought of the Cowboys since Dak Prescott returned? So since the Lions game to now, agree means yes, this is the lowest that I have thought of this team. Disagree means no. At one point since Dak came back specifically, I have thought less of them. So again, make sure we're talking about since Dak Prescott returned, the Cooper Rush era is not. Tony, you've got agree up. That means this is the lowest you have thought of them since Dak Prescott came back. Give me, in a few short words, why?
It's simply because they've shown us some concerning signs over the last month. Even in victory, it's been tough, like the Houston Texans game, the first half of the Colts game, finding a way to lose this Jacksonville game. They're just seeing things play out in front of us that I need to stop the bleeding on for me to really feel more comfortable about this team going into the playoffs.
You've all put your cards down, so it's very difficult for me to remember what what you said initially. Brandon, Loree, you disagree. What was the lowest you thought of them then, if it's not right now?
Yeah, I thought the lowest was the Texans game for me. And again, that's nothing against the Texans. They took the Chiefs to overtime. But to me, still the mobile quarterback is an issue. And I know Trevor Lawrence is a mobile guy, but he stood in the pocket, a lot more on Sunday. I think that when you look at the playoffs and, the clash that will inevitably go against the Eagles, if you proceed and move on in the playoffs, I think that is a little bit troubling for me. And that still needs to be cleaned up. That's why I wish, things were different for hopefully with Saturday. But I still need to see things from that game. I like the fact that the Cowboys came out to an early lead. That's what we were asking for a while. I always said I said on the podcast that the Jaguars beat the Cowboys at their own game. They started out slow and then won in the end. And like what somebody said earlier, it's not how you start, it's about how you finish. I think Howman said it. So I think that the Cowboys, they showed how they can be aggressive on offense, score a lot of points, but you just need to finish the game. I think injuries are starting to pile up, and I don't blame that on the team itself. You need to position guys in a better situation. But I think that with 3 games left in the season, you can figure that out.
Howman, you seem to think this is the lowest. Why is this lower than the time period following the Packers loss?
Well, first of all, after the Packers loss, they came out and they responded by ripping the Vikings apart.
I'm talking about the Tuesday. Like we can't like use all of the context. We got to talk about the way we felt following a particular game.
Right. Well, this also has, this feels lower because it's also coming after the 2 other games against the Texans and the Colts. So it's an accumulation of things. The Packers, they were coming off 2 strong wins since Dak came back over the Lions and the Bears. And, there was also just the aspect of, with the Packers, it was like, okay, Aaron Rodgers did it again. You can kind of write it off as that's just what Aaron Rodgers does to the Cowboys. But this is more concerning to me because we've seen them not be able to put together a complete game since that Vikings game. They've struggled, whether it be the first half, second half. And, I know at the beginning, Sturch said that the defense shouldn't get that much criticism. They've gotten worse over these last few games. They gave up 23 points to the Texans. Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll putting that much points on the Dallas defense should not happen. Against Jacksonville.
What about the Chiefs?
Well, they have a terrible defense.
The Chiefs have a terrible defense.
They're supposed to go to the Super Bowl, though.
But boy, you talk about the defense. I mean, that's a fair point.
But the Chiefs aren't winning games because of their defense. They're winning because of Patrick Mahomes. The Cowboys, for most of the season, were winning because of their defense, and they got manhandled by the Texans. Then you go up against the Jaguars, and I mean, the pass rush was doing a great job to the point they had more pressures in that game that they've had since week 5. but they never got home because the coverage was so bad on the back end. Trevor Lawrence got the ball out quick, and he got it to open guys because the coverage has become a problem. They were running all over because the run defense has gotten worse. And, that's Jonathan Hankins, who won't come back until the playoffs. That's Leighton Vander Esch, who they say is going to miss probably a couple games. That's, the next 2 games, it's Eagles and Titans. Those are 2 teams that run the ball really well. So these are problems that are not going away. That's why I feel worse about it than I have at any other point since Dak came back.
Danny, you kind of played around with it. You agree. So is this maybe the worst you've felt all season? Because you could argue that maybe we never truly felt bad during the Cooper Rush days. I'm not trying to change the question, but because, we kind of had that, that sort of lifeline, right? Like we had that to burn, right? Like, well, we can't really feel bad about this. It's Cooper Rush. Is this the lowest point of the season for you?
Oh, the entire season? That's tough because
dial-up internet going on, by the way. Is that you, Tony?
I think it might be you.
Oh, Danny, go ahead.
The thing is, so no, this is the lowest, and it's because I've seen Dak, and now that I've seen Dak play, and I've seen how he's performing, I'm not concerned with Dak. So there's other elements now that I'm concerned with, in particular, and Howman, spoke on already. But I mean, if you look at the past few games, 5 games or whatever, we are losing quarters. We've lost more quarters than we've won. We are playing more bad football than we're playing good football. This is the part that concerns me. And for us to suddenly not be able to stop teams on defense, I mean, I can just see the San Francisco game and just be in a complete mess. Things are starting to not go so good, and through injury or whatever. But if teams are figuring us out and they're starting to take advantage of some of the things that we do on defense, and to where our defense isn't playing to that level, then it puts everything back on our offense again, and we're just not consistent enough to be a team that can win take that next. I just feel like we've seen this before. I'm not, the reason why I feel this way is because McCarthy is a fraud. That's why.
Whoa, Danny.
I mean,
oh my
God.
What? Yeah, back-to-back 10-win teams. He sucks.
You know what? 10
sucks.
If I was saying 10-win teams, Sturch would be like, do you celebrate 10 wins? You know what? We've been here before. We want something else.
We haven't been here before. That's the difference. We haven't been to this point of back-to-back 10-win teams, back-to-back playoff appearances. It has been a very, very long time. Jason Garrett never accomplished those things.
Yeah, you know what? Jason Garrett also beat the Jaguars.
Was he a fraud?
He's the only team in the last 20 years.
Well, was he a fraud? If McCarthy's a fraud, then Jason Garrett's a capital F.
Also,
fraud.
he beat the Jaguars with Blake Bortles. That's different from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's another debate if you want to go. But you guys love McCarthy because he's not Jason Garrett. Well, I'm telling you something. You know what? If the Cowboys don't even get to the divisional round in the first 3 years of McCarthy's, I mean, how's that going to make you feel? I mean,
they didn't make it to the playoffs in the first 3 years of Jason Garrett.
I'll tell you how it's going to make you feel. You're going to be wanting Sean Payton, and I'll be on the other end telling you about. I go through this with you guys all the time with the coaches. It's like,
okay, so when we want, so if that plays out the way you're saying it's going to play out, and we all say, you're right, Mike can't get the big game done, so now we want Sean Payton. Who are you going to turn on? Like who are we going for? Who's the head coach of the Cowboys next year?
I'm not turning on anyone.
I think you just said Mike McCarthy's a fraud, Danny.
No, I've never liked McCarthy. That's not changed. I'm not turning on McCarthy. I didn't like him as a hire. I don't like him now.
I will say Danny is at least marching to the same beat here. I mean, he was, he thought McCarthy was a fraud day 1. So, I mean, the fact that we're at like day, 1100 and he's still saying it, he is at the very least consistent in that sense. To get kind of back on track, as we kind of like, weave through this, we have a lot of people here, so we kind of have to twist this up a bit. Sturch, I will say Danny makes a solid point, I think, and Howman kind of touched on this too. No offense to Tony or B2, but we thought this was different, right? Like what we're seeing is starting to feel like similarly good Cowboys teams from the past. And I recognize that people are getting triggered, right? Like, oh, cool, you have an offense that can score, but that defense you had, that different thing that you had, that's no longer there. So like we've kind of seen this movie before, like, oh man, they're leaving the bad guy knocked out on the ground. They're not chopping his head off. We've seen this happen before.
Even in the end of 2020, as abysmal as that was, our defense started to come around. That was a historically bad defense, right? Like at the end of the year, they started to play better. 2021 last year, all of a sudden, we're like, wow, we got ourselves a nice little unit here. 2022, we're talking about them as if they were the Chicago Bears of 85 and the Ravens of 2000. Guys, I'm here to just remind you that all those players, minus Anthony Brown and sometimes Leighton Vander Esch, they're all there still. They're all there. Like, this is not some flash in the pan because of the last couple of weeks we're supposed to give up on the defense. Like, what are we talking about here? The reason why we're even in this conversation and we're not talking about packing in our bags for next season is because of the defense. It's because of the defense, man. Look, you're telling me Cooper Rush went out there and balled out? Guys, since Dak's been back, it's been 34-plus points a game, guys. So if our defense can't hold them to 30 or less, then that's a problem. Yesterday or Sunday, Sunday was the exception. Sunday was the one where it's like, what the hell is happening here? The wheels are falling off. We can't find a corner. Kelvin Joseph should be fired into the sun. Like, this is like ridiculous at this point, guys. Like, we're all on this train of just like a locomotive that's headed right towards a wall. That's just like we're all ready to crash. Like, why not, for the first time in all of our lives, like at least our adult lives, that we just sit back, relax, and say, all right, you know what? We're in a position right now where we can play the fossil in the first round, right? Get that done, and then go somewhere else and play somewhere and play good football. This team is not as bad as Phantom is painting them out to be.
I forgot that Tony had a whiteboard. So Tony's been changing the things he writes.
He's like the other. Who's the guy in the one show? What he keeps talking?
I don't want Sturch misrepresenting me here. I do not think that we're bad. I just do not think that we're as good as you guys have been saying that we are as good as. So you know what?
What is the age-old saying, Phantom? You are what your record says you are, and this team is 10-4 right now, and but the potential to finish with 12 or 13 wins this year.
Well, I don't want to hear about how not good Jason Garrett was, because you know what? He had winning seasons too, and nobody cares about that.
When Jason Garrett won football games, I'm sorry, was I like mad about it? Like, I don't know what I was just saying here.
So a couple of things to kind of tie up here. First of all, Rick has given us a new nickname, Pistol Sturch. I kind of like that. Kind of a workshopping thing. But so Diesel
being made right now.
Diesel says Danny Phantom is telling the truth. Jess is screaming Danny. They are 10-4. So kind of like people all over the place here. Danny, just quickly here. Mark says, if you're calling McCarthy a fraud, then so is Dan Quinn, because our defense is failing too. Dan Quinn is getting zero backlash for what happened on Sunday in Jacksonville. Chris, I'm coming to you briefly. Danny, one word, yes or no. Is Dan Quinn at all to blame for what's happening lately?
Oh, yeah.
That was 2 words, so kind of disqualification. Chris, you are vehemently shaking your head. You don't want to see any Dan Quinn slander. By the way, if somebody can actually, never mind. Chris, go ahead.
I absolutely don't want to see any Dan Quinn slander, because the defense has been exceptional. And think about it, realistically speaking, the pressure was actually pretty good in that Jaguars game. I know that it didn't look like that at first glance, but they had a lot of pressures. Micah had a lot of pressures. It really came down to Trevor Lawrence being great and Kelvin Joseph being awful. I mean, like, his rap nickname is Boss Man Fat. It should be called Boss Man Trash, because he's horrible. He shouldn't be on the field. He should be gone. So I don't think that Dan Quinn deserves any real criticism for his coaching. I still think that the defense is great. I think that if there's any coordinator who deserves criticism, it's Kellen Moore, because his situational play calling continues to be awful. And at the end of the day, he just doesn't stick to a simple, consistent game plan. So I think if there's any coordinator who should be criticized, it's Kellen Moore, not Dan Quinn.
I don't want to interrupt, but like there's a thing where like in this chat it said somebody's in there, Diesel 80, Dak is turning into Romo. No, you're turning Dak into Romo.
Sturch, you're very ready to jump. Jump at the things that are topical, please. We don't need to relitigate all these old debates. Aidan, Vance brings up a great point. Chris over here like, hey, everybody chill out with this Dan Quinn slander. But Vance says, are we not concerned with Dan Quinn not helping Boss Man during the game? In fact, Aidan, Kelvin Joseph's replacement, Nishan Wright. I was told by many Cowboys fans, hey, this is Dan Quinn's dude. Y'all shut the hell up. I don't want to hear anybody complaining about Nishan Wright, because Dan Quinn stood up for him. I would die for Dan Quinn, Aidan. And look at what he's putting out on the field. He should be held accountable. I know Howman disagreed with Chris a moment ago, but Aidan.
Yeah, actually, Vance took my comment out from under me, because what I was going to say is I think's happening.
You have access to the comment, so I don't know that. Maybe you stole it from him. So
sure. What I think is happening, and I've looked at it, you can see it mostly with Donovan Wilson. I think Dan Quinn got so concerned with stopping the run that he's pulling safeties out from deep, like Dono. Dono's been great in run defense lately, but you haven't really seen him in coverage. And so it leads to these big plays over the top, like what we saw with Anthony Brown before he got injured. We saw this last week. If you look at the play where Kelvin Joseph got absolutely burned deep, the safety was on the ground. He was supposed to be covering that deep play over the top, and he was nowhere to be seen. So yes, Kelvin Joseph's bad. We all know this. I don't think anybody would debate this. But Dan Quinn's not above reproach here. I mean, if you're going to I'm not going to blame Kellen Moore for putting up 34 points and then just completely turn around and say, no, but Dan Quinn, you're okay. You allowed 34 points too, but it's okay, buddy. I mean, we have to treat them equally here.
To that point, Dan Quinn's the one who kind of got worked a little bit against the Houston Texans. Dan Quinn's the one who couldn't get to Matt Ryan. No sacks against Matt Ryan. I mean, one of the most statue-like quarterbacks in the NFL, and Dan Quinn's mighty defense with all these pass rushers who we all foam at the mouth over could not get to him. Howman, you were sort of with your card vehemently defending Kellen Moore. Do you believe, because Chris brought this up in the chat that we were talking about on Monday, do you think Kellen is at all to blame right now? Do you think Kellen is taking too much heat?
I think he's taking too much heat, but he's not without blame. I mean, the play calling on that final possession of regulation, I think was just poorly done. Not just the call on third down, but the two plays before that netted 0 yards between the two plays. But I mean, we're talking about like this offense just put up 34 points, and like the league average for scoring this year is 22 points. So they're well above average. Even against the Texans, when they had a pretty terrible performance offensively, they still put up well over the league average. They almost got to 30 points. In week 15 alone, the Cowboys offense was 10th in EPA per play. They were 3rd in offensive success rate. So like to come away from that game and say like Kellen Moore is the one that is the problem when your defense is giving up that many points and you're not able to stop Trevor Lawrence from throwing the ball wherever he wants, and you're not able to disrupt him, you're not able to stop the run game. It's just kind of, it boggles my mind because like the offense, they're not perfect, and they obviously, their biggest flaw right now is turning the ball over. But Kellen Moore has done some really good things with this offense, especially since Dak Prescott returned. He has things that he still needs to improve on as a play caller, for sure. But also Dan Quinn has been in this game for a lot longer. He's been running defenses a lot longer than Kellen Moore has. He should have those answers already, and he didn't in this game. He didn't against the Houston Texans, and for 3 quarters against the Colts, he really didn't either.
His answer on Sunday was to bench Kelvin Joseph because he's garbage. That was his answer. Just like
they still lost
when they benched homeboy that couldn't block on the right side of the tackle, so they got rid of him and brought in Jason Peters. They're making better decisions.
They still lost. They still gave up the plays at the final possession to let them get into field position for the field goal.
In overtime, they went 3 and out.
This was a game where each side had exemplary moments and some really fallible moments. That's what makes it such a fun and sort of devastating one to argue about. I did want to note to Diesel 80, who said the defense gave you I'm sorry, this was not the comment. Said, here it is. Tell me when they get a first down or touchdown when they have to have it. I'll wait. They literally got that 2 weeks ago against the Houston Texans, and they also had it on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars to take the lead. So the idea or the presentation that the offense can't get it done in like crunch or value time is silly to me. Brandon, getting away from Dan Quinn, this was what I was going to have Aidan fact check, or somebody fact check. So somebody can, if they want. Micah said after the game something like, next time Dak spots me a 17-point lead, I'm never going to lose it. I think he said that after they collapsed against Green Bay. So somebody can fact check.
14.
So yeah, I realized it was different, but it's like, okay, well, true, Micah, you did not squander a 14-point lead, but you did squander a 17-point lead just a few weeks later. So maybe just chill out. So Brandon, focus just on Micah. Does Micah deserve just like a hair of blame? And not that he's not great, but like he's the leader, right? He's supposed to unlock everything. Like, we've grown to expect ridiculous things from him, but that's who he's been. Or like, is he? And maybe not blame, but is Micah maybe not the same? Is he tired? Is he wearing down? Like, I guess the better question is, do you have even like a 1% level of concern about his overall impact on the game?
Not at all. It's Micah Parsons. I think the blame would have to go on Dan Quinn's shoulders. I mean, I'll say this. I love Dan Quinn. The scoreboard does not reflect how good the defense has played, because how many times has the opposing offense been on the opposite side of the field? That's just how it goes. It's a short field a lot of times. That's why the scoreboard is what it is. So when I see these 40-point scores, 30-point scores, I'm not that concerned, because if you go look at the starting position a lot of times for the opposing team, it's on the plus side of the 50. So it's one of those situations where the defense is doing the best they can. And a lot of times they're holding them to 3 points. So going back to Micah Parsons, I think he is getting dragged down. And I know we've talked about it on previous roundtables, because he's, being in the trenches, in trench warfare, that's tougher than what he was doing before as pretty much a linebacker primarily. So I think he's just worn down, because the Cowboys expect so much from him because he's so darn good. He is. I call him the unicorn for a reason. He is arguably one of the best defensive players in the league. So I don't think it's on him. I feel like the defense just needs a little tweaking, and it doesn't help when there's been injuries in different positions. And I will say that the Leighton Vander Esch injury that's a tough one too, because yes, he's out for potentially for the rest of this regular season. So hopefully we'll have him back for the postseason. But that injury is tough because Vander Esch has had a heck of a year. He's done a lot of work in the second line. So again, it's not Micah's fault. Micah can't do everything. There's 10 other guys on the field. So for me, I can't put that on Micah. I don't care. He could be the best player in the world, but so are we going to not blame DeMarcus Lawrence? Are we not going to blame?
That's fair.
Are we going to Donovan Wilson? I mean, the blame goes for the whole team. You win as a team, you lose as a team. That's just how it goes.
All right. So last part of this roundtable, we're going to focus kind of on this Eagles game in a weird way. It's not quite, Sturch, I know you disagree. It's not quite got to have it for the Cowboys. Yes, the Eagles need to win to clinch the 1 seed. These teams are both effectively entrenched into the 1 and 5 seeds, respectively. My personal opinion is that took a little bit of juice out of the matchup. Tony, I know you said that on 1st and 10. Tony, actually, while we were doing the roundtable last week, you sent in the chat that Micah had the comment about Jalen Hurts and how it was really, is it the team? That comment was really blown sort of out of proportion. But that take is going to get tested, right? Like if the Cowboys lose on Saturday to the Philadelphia Eagles without Jalen Hurts, Micah's going to be proven right. And, it will be funny that he will be right, but the Cowboys will have lost. I don't know who saw this. I saw this a little while ago, threw something up on the site. I don't know if anybody missed it. The Eagles reportedly sent the Jaguars cheesesteaks for beating the Cowboys. Everybody here gave that an eye roll. I don't know if that was led by Nick Sirianni, but I would not be shocked if that were the case. That being the case, Tony, what is there to gain Saturday? It's the Eagles, right? Like we all understand the bare minimum division rivalry, et cetera. But are you interested in we got to beat this team? We got to show ourselves. We got to see them kind of thrash the Eagles. I want to see them cover. I want to see a win. I don't care even if they lose. They're going to get the 5 seed anyway. So what? Whatever. Blah blah blah. Where are you at?
I want to see him win the game. Period. I don't care if it's Gardner Minshew. I don't care if it's Jalen Hurts. At the end of the day, I want them to win. Period, point blank, period, right? Yes, the juice of this game has been removed a little bit because they didn't earn it. They had to go win that Jacksonville game, and hopefully we needed the Eagles to lose some games. But at the end of the day, they are things that they can accomplish with this win. It goes above the scoreboard. It goes above the record. They need to go out there and get right. We've been talking about this defense and Dan Quinn and talking about whose blame is who deserves blame, who deserves what. Is Dak Prescott turning the football over too much? Is Micah Parsons, putting his foot in his mouth? Like there are a lot of things that can be sorted out in this game. And and that can all be true while understanding that the juice has been taken out a little bit. So I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, we need to go win this football game. We got to get the 11th win and kind of get back on the tracks, but it could have been anybody. We could have played anybody on Christmas Eve and I'd have the same sentiment about it.
Aidan, how much of you wants to win this game purely because of the cheesesteak thing, how the Eagles really celebrated beating the Cowboys back in week 6? Or is that not a factor for you at this point? Are you so concerned about the Jaguars last year? To Tony's point, I don't care who it is. I just need a win. It just so happens to be the Eagles this week.
I mean, my thing is the juice wasn't taken out when we lost to the Jags for me. The juice was taken out when the Jalen Hurts injury was announced because I wanted that barometer. I was like, okay, this is a team we're probably going to see in the second round of the playoffs. Well, a lot of if we made it to the second round, this team.
Wow, Aidan just guaranteed a Dallas Cowboys playoff win, everybody. So go ahead. Aidan.
But I wanted to see how we stacked up against Jalen Hurts versus Dak Prescott. We haven't seen it in a while, and so. Don't get me wrong. I want to bury the Eagles, and when we bury the Eagles, I'm going to take pleasure in gloating like the Eagles gloated when they beat Cooper Rush. It was that moment where I wanted that barometer. And also the cheesesteak thing. When Micah Parsons made the comment, everybody was like, just focus on the Jags. Did you just give a team prize points for beating the Cowboys? It's just, I don't know. It seems a little bit hypocritical to me.
Danny Phantom, Is the Eagles part of this relevant to you, or are you just looking for another opportunity for Mike McCarthy to fail?
No, I'm not. I'm really rooting for Mike McCarthy. But no, I think first off, the cheesesteak, the thing that I enjoy about that is it just reminds me that everybody just loves to to hate the Cowboys. So to
Yeah.
me, I just think it's adorable.
When
you
I did
know?
a little clip on this, Danny, and I said when we say rent free, like this is why. Like
Yeah.
those are those are the things. Like that's why we say this. But go ahead, Danny.
So have your free cheese steaks. I don't care. But I do think the juice is. I think most of the juice is gone. I mean, obviously, it's a game that there's a lot of things that are important. But the playoff, the one seed's out. That's out. The Jalen Hurts, the barometer that Aidan's talking about, that's out. So really, to me, I'm looking at it totally different. We need to stay healthy. And we need to work on some things. So, you know what? We had this question last week. It was our question that we proposed to Team Hat Trick is, what's more important to you?
Calling us out.
Yeah. I mean, what do you prioritize? And this is one of those situations to where I don't care about the Eagles in that sense. You know what? Just like they beat us with, Cooper Rush. If we beat them with Hurts, who cares? The only thing that matters is what's going to happen in that divisional round. So to me, I want to get to that. I want to get to that as a team that's playing better football, that's healthy. So those are the things that matter to me. So what I'll be looking for on Saturday is going to be completely different than what I would normally, in a game.
B2, do you feel the normal Cowboys Eagles hype, or is it a little bit dissipated?
Yeah, man, like Aidan said, seeing the Cowboys go against a mobile quarterback, I think would have been something I needed to see and see that they can defend. But I still think the Cowboys need to bring the heat like chestnuts on an open fire. I do think that it got to keep Christmas alive in this podcast. I really do think that, like Danny said, I disagreed with him last week, but I do agree in the fact that the way that the health is going in this team right now, you don't need to bring so much energy where you're just getting hurt after this game, and then all of a sudden guys are out for 2-3 weeks, going into a wild card or divisional round. So I do think that there are things that need to be seen of improvement. I want to see the cornerbacks go against two top wide receivers in the NFL and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, see that they can defend them. So that this way, if they play the 49ers in the playoffs, they're playing guys like Samuel, Ayuk. This is going to be a reoccurring theme. Even if you play Tampa Bay right now, you're going to be playing guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I know they're not playing well right now, but the playoffs, you throw everything out the window. So I need to see stuff like that. And I just want to see them leave this game healthy. That's what I've said, even against the Texans, like win a competitive game, against a bad team and leave healthy. And unfortunately, they didn't do that. So I have to say that the juice is left a little bit, but no matter what, you should just win this game. Just win, move on, keep padding the record, and get healthy and improve on things.
Your co-host on the Writer's Block, Brandon, gave you 5 points for the holiday cheer. I would say Shiner's Cheer beer is an excellent brew this time of year. Chris, Aidan, I know you're both a little too young for that. You guys are like 16 years old. Chris, I'll come to you next. You are shaking your head. You're like, hell no, get out of here, guys. Like I am totally hyped for this game. Do you honestly feel as hyped as you possibly could? Like, do you really not feel like there is no juice taken out of this game due to all the circumstances?
From a casual NFL fan perspective, sure, the juice has kind of gone out a little bit. No, but as a Dallas Cowboys fan, I hate Philadelphia. I hate the city. I hate cheesesteaks. I hate the Eagles fans. I hate the Eagles. I don't want to see us absolutely just lose that game. And who wants to get swept by Philadelphia? No, there's no juice gone. It's Christmas Eve. I want to wake up Christmas on a victory Christmas, and I want to be happy that the Cowboys won that football game. There's just as much importance. Maybe it's not as important for the standings records, but it's just as much importance as the Cowboys proving that they can beat a good team and they can defend the run and they can do all these things. There's no juice loss for me as a Cowboys fan. Maybe, like from an NFL perspective, sure, we're not getting Hurts versus Dak. Sure, the division really isn't really on the line. But as a Cowboys fan, of course, I still have just as much juice for this game. I want to see them dominate the Eagles. And honestly, if you're talking about the low point of the season, I won't feel any lower than losing to the Gardner Minshew-led Eagles. So we need to win that game. It's just as important for Cowboys, and it's just as important for me because I can't stand the Eagles, and we can't get swept by them.
That would be very frustrating. Brandon, Clements, what would be a better win? Or excuse me, a better win: the Cowboys against the Gardner Minshew-led Eagles, or the Eagles against the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys?
Oh, I would say the Gardner Minshew game. I mean, Gardner Minshew.
Wow. So you think Gardner Minshew is a more impressive quarterback than Cooper Rush? Wow.
I do. I don't care what anybody says. I've been watching Gardner Minshew for years. He was great at Washington State. When he came out in the 6th round, back when the Jags got him, I thought he was ready to be in the league right away. He's a talented player, and he may not have the fastest 40 time, but Uncle Rico can. He rushed for, I think, almost 400 yards in his rookie year with the Jags. So he can move. He can move a little bit. So it's not Jalen Hurts type athleticism. but Gardner Minshew is a quality quarterback, and I think he is one of the. I think he might be the top backup in the league. So I don't care what anybody says. Gardner Minshew is a good player, and it's always hate the Eagles. It's always hate the Eagles. Born and raised in Syracuse, New York. They took my favorite quarterback of all time, Don McNabb, drafted him, and I had to sit
Is there a way to mute him or no?
You won your national title already, Brandon. Thank you.
Well, hold on. I did not like having Don McNabb going to Philly, and I live in an area where it's the Syracuse fans are also Philadelphia fans, so I live in like Philly North. So
right.
I don't care when they play. It doesn't matter what the records are. I want the Cowboys to kick the crap out of Philly, and I want to see that punk Sirianni humbled a little bit because he's a little pompous.
Howman, obviously not knowing the context of it, but would this win be the least impressive win of the season for the Cowboys? Like, what would this win easily be more impressive than? Like, as far as Cowboys wins this season, I don't know if that question makes sense. Again, like if they struggled and barely pulled it off last second field goal, it's a different thing than winning 40-3.
I think it's more impressive than the Texans win for sure. I think it would still rank as a pretty impressive win. And that's why I thought it was kind of funny what Micah Parsons said last week. I mean, maybe you can debate whether Jalen Hurts, whether he's the MVP, whether he's MVP worthy, but like that is a really good team. They've really built that team all around him. They have a great offensive line, great defensive line. I mean, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are still there. They have a really good offense that works really well. And Gardner Minshew, maybe I don't love him as much as Brandon, but I do think he's a pretty darn good quarterback. And he certainly has more experience than Cooper Rush does, even after Cooper Rush, played all those games for Dallas. And I mean, at the end of the day, the Eagles are still a good team and they're still going to be hard to beat, and getting a win over them is still going to be something that is impressive and important. And I just go back to, I mean, I'm an Arizona State guy and he may not coach here anymore, but Herm Edwards still has the greatest advice ever. You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. So of course,
he even did the hello. That's amazing.
The juice is still there. This is Cowboys, Eagles. You can't get swept by and you can't lose to Gardner Minshew. You got to win the game.
Eagles wearing their black uniforms, black helmets. So definitely, dressing up for the occasion. Sturch, you've been waiting to tee off on this like all week. You were like, I'm coming on the round table. I don't want to hear any of this. You were kind of sick of people like, look, you understand the like mathematical part of this, right? Like that,
Sure.
That things aren't as up for grabs as they were a week ago, thanks to the fact that the Cowboys lost. But you want to bury this team. I mean, like, are you at all concerned? We haven't even touched on this about Aidan kind of did, but about visiting this team in the divisional round. Do you maybe not want to show all your cards? Or you don't care. Cards be damned.
Cards be damned. This is a division game. You're more familiar with this. You guys are like, I just want to see Dak versus her. I mean, did we not see that Monday Night Football last year when we beat them by like a 40 burger or something like that? So that's happened. Okay, we all know that's happened. As far as this game is concerned, you absolutely have to go out there and throttle this team. You have to. I don't care who the quarterback is. It could be Hurts. It could be Minshew. It could be Danny Phantom. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is of the Philadelphia Eagles. You have to win this game. Why? Because you have to show the Eagles. You have to show the Eagles and their fans, right? You got to show them that, oh my God, we are lost without Hurts. We are a complete shell of ourselves without Jalen Hurts. Let them feel that pressure, and then let them feel that pressure the following week when they got to go play the Saints, and then the following week they got to play the Giants, and then the following week they're going to be like, well, what the hell just happened here? We need our guy back. And then a rusty, pompous little
family show, Sturch. Family show.
Family show. Listen, you see, I told you I can censor myself. No, but what I'm saying is this. You go out there, you play your best football. We've all got this taste in our mouth of losing to the Jaguars in overtime in gross fashion, right? You got to get right. They usually do after a loss. And what better recipe? Christmas Eve, spoil these guys. Sirianni did the how about them Eagles after that. He's a little see, I'm just Sirianni's a really
kids are smart. That's
class act. Yeah, Sirianni's a class act, and if Dan Quinn were to just give him one right hook, it'd be an end of it. But what I will say is this: the Cowboys have to go out there to prove to themselves that last week was just a bad bounce of the ball, and they could have won that game. Same thing with the Packers. Same thing with these other losses where these bad bounces and these bad decisions and maybe bad play calling. They put it all together. Guys, we've seen this team go on absolute tears and destroy teams and run teams off the gym field, whatever. You've seen it happen. They could do it again. And what better way, man? Just do it against the Eagles and let them feel a little bit pressure. I know they understand that. Oh, we only need one win. Great. Don't let it come at the disposal of the Cowboys on Christmas Eve in Dallas. Do not let them receive their stupid hats and their stupid t-shirts in our locker room. We've already gone down this road with the Giants when they got to sign the stupid wall, right? Don't let it happen again. Smash this stupid team for good. Just smash them.
My own personal prediction is that's the kind of cut of cheese we get here. Howman mentioned it, but the Cowboys bounced back with vigor after the Packers lost in Minnesota, and kind of felt like, right, like they were like, oh, we played 90% of a game, right? Let's go play 100% and let's see what happens. And same sort of circumstances here. By the way, that Packers loss also featured a singular wide receiver catching 3 touchdowns, and Christian Watson. It was Zay Jones in Jacksonville. All right, so we have one final question or one final sort of template here, but interestingly, we have 4 ties among you. So I'm going to split you into duos for this last question, if that is all right with you, Tony Catalina.
You know I'm a team player.
Are you interested who your partner is, Tony? Who do you think it is?
It's got to be my guy Sturch.
It's not. It's David Howman. We've got Sturch. Sturch. Tony Catalina and David Howman are team number 1. B2, Brandon Loree, who do you think your teammate is for this final question?
Can it be B1?
It is B1. The Brandons are going to be taking on everybody else here. Danny Phantom, that means you were on team 3. Who do you think your partner is?
Oh, I don't know. I'm starting to get worried, though.
Sturch. Please let it be Sturch.
Sturch.
I don't know.
Phantom, it's Christmas.
It would. The whole point of this is to guess, Danny, and like have some fun. You know what I mean? We're all just
Okay, I guess it's Aidan.
It is Aidan. That means that Chris Halling and Dave Sturchio are on team number 4. We're going to go in order clockwise here. If you're watching, if you're not, don't worry. We'll explain it in an audio sense. The template, the question, you guys can attack it however you want, but as a duo. So we're going to award a duo. One team will win tonight's roundtable, you and your partner, if it's this lucky too. How does this season go for the Cowboys? It can be a prediction. It can be a prediction for Saturday. It can be a prediction for the season. It can be anything you want. But what do we have in store? You know, it's Christmas. Wrap this present up for us. Tell us what we're going to see over the course of the next 4, 5, 6, hopefully 7, 8 weeks. Tony Catalina, David Howman, you're up first. The floor is yours.
Dave, if you want, I'll let you hit cleanup, and if you let me go first here.
I'm all for it.
All right. So, on the First Attempt podcast on Monday, I had a little pessimistic view to it. It's not really my nature. When I have Sturch, he kind of brings me back, and tells me the positive side of things and the way to look at it. So I'm going to channel a little bit of that. Last year they finished 12-5. I thought that was the year. I truly did. In my 31 years of life, 30 last year, I thought that was the best team, with the best chance. I think this year, when the defense puts it all back together, they figure out who the cornerback 2 is going to be. They kind of get everybody healthy, kind of stabilize things on defense. I truly do believe this is the best team we've seen in a very long time. And it's because it's led by Dan Quinn and it's led by this defense. So I don't care. Really, I mean, I know in this pod and everybody's talking about, we got to beat the Eagles. I'm more worried about big picture, right? I would love to beat the Eagles Christmas Eve. I would love for my Christmas to be joyful and happy and merry and all that. But I want the big payback. I want the divisional round. I want to get through the playoffs. I want to see them in their home field, and I want to punch them in the teeth then and there. So I do see that happening. Okay, I do think the Cowboys are going to do something we haven't seen since 1996. I think they're going to beat the Eagles in a year where they look like the best front runners from top to bottom. And we're going to put them out of their misery, and we're going to end up in the NFC Championship game. And then after that, because I haven't seen it in my adult life and really in my whole life I'm not making a pick after that. I'm just going to enjoy the ride, but I'm going to let Howman kind of finish it up. But I'm telling you right now, NFC Championship, Eagles, put them to bed.
I think something that we kind of gets lost here because we're so hyper fixated on the Cowboys is the fact that when you look at the whole NFL, there's not a whole lot of good teams out there. Most of these teams are average or below average, and you're going to get some teams in the playoffs that have no business being there. So when you talk about the Cowboys and, they haven't been able to put together a complete game very often, they also have put together those complete games. And like we mentioned earlier, like they tend to play down or up to their opponent's level. So if you get into the playoffs, this team has already shown they have the talent, they have the ability. They might not do it all the time, but because they tend to rise to the occasion or sometimes lower themselves, you get to the playoffs. I think that's a good mixture. And you've also got a coach in Mike McCarthy who has been there. He has done that. He's gotten to the Super Bowl, and they've kind of moved on from the problems that cursed them in the playoffs last year with the 49ers. They're going to be getting Jonathan Hankins back for the playoffs. Leighton Vander Esch probably going to be back as well. So that fixes some of those problems once you get there. And like Tony said, they're in a good spot right now where they have everything that they need to really go there and get to the conference championship game. And it's really just a matter of they're the only ones that can stand in their way. And I think after all of this adversity, they can overcome that.
Killer Bees.
All right, I'm going to start with this one. So I think the next 3 games, I think the Cowboys are going to roll. I think they're going to do a great job and finish it up with 3 wins to get to the playoffs. And I think to Tony's point, I think that Eagles matchup will be always a fun watch in the playoffs. And I do want to see them smash the Eagles and end their Super Bowl hopes. I don't care when. I just want it to happen. And I think it's going to be I want to see a repeat of 93-94. I want to see Buffalo Bills and Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl. And we all know how that worked out times 2. So I'm kind of that's where I'm going. That's the game plan. I think the Cowboys defense, I think they're going to right the ship. I trust Dan Quinn to fix the issues along the secondary. I think Leighton Vander Esch is going to heal up. I think honestly, in the next couple of games, maybe we kind of after the Philly game, maybe we lighten the load a little bit for Micah, let him rest up a little bit, and then get him ready for the playoffs because that's where the games really matter. And I think Dak Prescott is. I don't care what anybody says. I know you guys were talking about it in the beginning, but Dak Prescott's had this past game, even though it wasn't a loss against the Jaguars, he played some good football this past week. He threw for almost 80% on the completion percentage. Those 2 picks weren't on him. So Dak's playing well. I think Dak continues to play well, and as long as they continue with the balance on offense, and they also they protect Dak obviously, and they keep running the ball. And then adding T.Y. Hilton in the mix, I feel like in the playoffs, I'm going to call it now. I think T.Y. Hilton makes a play to help the Cowboys, win a crucial playoff game. I'm just calling my shot on that. But I think it's going to be a nice run deep, and hopefully it's a repeat of 93 and 94 against the Buffalo Bills, and we'll see where it goes.
92 and 93, but whatever.
I have to agree with my elder, wiser statesman namesake. I want to see, in the spirit of the holidays, the Cowboys exercise the ghosts of playoff past and teams past. I want to see with the past, I want to see them beat Tom Brady in the wild card. And I think that's going to happen. You send Tom Brady off on his little retirement play. And when it comes to the present, I think right now the 49ers are playing the best football in the NFL, better than the Eagles. And I think that given what happened last year in the playoffs, the Cowboys have something to prove in that manner. And with the ghost of Christmas future, the Eagles and the Cowboys, they are going to be back and forth for many years to come right now, depending on what happens with Hurts in the offseason. If they do sign him long-term, like, these teams are built for the future. And I do think that the Cowboys, like Tony said, I think for me, it's a little bit sweeter if you go into Philadelphia and smack them in the mouth. So to me, I just want to see a little exercise of Christmas past, and also make it back to the Super Bowl. To me, it's never happened in my lifetime. I've always heard stories and fairy tales about it by my father. And it seems nice. Like, listen, everybody loves a good fairy tale. I want it to come true. So in the spirit of the holidays, I want to see all that stuff happen.
Sturch, Chris, our resident Homer team. I expect this to be pretty impassioned.
Take over, Chris.
All right, man. So I was going to say, we're going to thrash the Eagles on Christmas Eve. It won't be close. Their confidence is going to be done. We're going to beat the Titans. We're going to lock up Derrick Henry. We're going to make a statement that this run defense isn't as bad as it has been. Defense is going to be righted by the time we get into the wild card. We are going to beat Tom Brady for the first time in 8 matchups against us. We're going to send him home, his washed self. He's going to be on the couch. And then what gives you more confidence? What gives you more confidence than beating the best football player of all time and getting over that hump? You're going to ride that confidence. You're then going to make it to the NFC Championship game. You're going to send home the Eagles. And then you have all the confidence in the world. The Cowboys are winning their first Super Bowl since I've been alive this year. That's the way this season is going to end.
Pretty young crew we got around here.
Mike McCarthy is going to prove that he deserves his flowers. Dan Quinn is going to prove that he deserves his flowers. And, maybe Kellen Moore can, possibly prove me wrong. But the Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl this year. I can guarantee it.
Oh, guarantee. Okay. Well, I will say this. I said it on the 1st and 10. I think it's very apparent that, what is that? I'm just looking at calendar year. I don't know what that was. I just looked at the private chat for 1 second. Sorry. Anyway, so to my point, I said it on 1st and 10. Oh, calendar year. I get it. Now I get it because I said 92, 93.
You're losing points. You got to stay organized. This is
whatever. You know what? Nobody's gonna give me and Chris the win here because everybody's gonna be like, this is way too optimistic. But I will say that on 1st and 10, as soon as we got done losing to the Jaguars, we're going to be sitting here in February, maybe mid-February, and be like, man, can you believe the last time the Cowboys lost in 2021 was against the Jaguars on a fluke
2022. Welcome to the calendar year.
Whatever. So what I'm saying is this: the Cowboys have a chance right now. Once you get into this dance in this wide open NFC, and it is wide open because I've said it all year round about the Vikings, and we've seen it because their point differential is ridiculous. I've said it about the Eagles because guess what, guys? I know they've won a lot of games, and I know they beat the brakes off a lot of teams, but there was games where they could have been had. They could have been had this past weekend against Justin Fields and the Bears. They spotted the Jaguars 14 points. They struggled against the Colts. They battled against the Lions. Like this team has weaknesses. And if there's any year that the Cowboys can get into the dance, guess what? They already did, right? We're there. We have a spot. Doesn't matter who we're playing. It's a team that gets hot at the end wins. And I think that this Dallas Cowboys team is going to go out there and it's going to be, a solid win over the Eagles. I think they're gonna man up and wear their all whites or whatever the hell they're doing on Thursday Night Football and make it all look nice. We're gonna do that and get that done too. And again, the Commanders game means nothing as far as seeding is concerned, unless we go into the last week of the year all of a sudden with the Eagles losers of 2 and us winners of 2. That could be a thing, but I don't see that happening. But I will see the Cowboys in the playoffs as the 5 seed. And I think, this guy thinks he's putting Tom Brady down and putting him behind the shed. Tom Brady's going to be a quarterback of the 49ers next year, in case anybody was wondering. But anyway, so I think that there's going to be a lot riding on this playoff run. And I know we've all have this stigma on us right now where every time the Cowboys, if I had a nickel for as many times as I heard one and done with like uppercase, lowercase type speech, you know what I'm talking about? That kind of just moronic debate. Like, we get it, man. We get it. We're one and done every year since 96, right? So what happens now? If the Cowboys win 2 games, right, and they get to the NFC Championship and they lose, what's a 2 and done? What a bunch of losers, right? This team can't get out of their own way as far as the fan base is concerned, because there's a lot of fickle fan base members out there, and I've called you all out individually almost to the point where I'm responding to your stupid tweets. Get used to the fact that the Dallas Cowboys, led by Dak Prescott, can win the Super Bowl this year, given the field. Given the opponents that are in the field, we could win this thing this year. Now, is the window shut after this year? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of camaraderie going on. I think there's decisions to be made and all that crap, and we'll talk about that in the offseason. But for this season, Dak Prescott's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I don't ever want to hear this whole he's not a top 10 quarterback anymore. That's slander. That's stupid. That's moronic. And that's Shady McCoy. But I would say that this guy has a chance to do really, really good things and special things for this fan base to just have everybody just kind of pump the brakes on the whole one and done crap.
Team, Danny, Aidan, I don't have a clever nickname for you. So go ahead.
We don't need one. I don't have an answer to this, so I'll go first so Aidan can actually give an answer. But I think that, the Cowboys are one of a handful of teams, and I thought this at the beginning of the year, that could win it all. I think that they're good enough, but I think that there's a lot of things that could happen that, could get in their way. And to me, this isn't a team that's any different. I think it's going to be a lot like other years. Maybe we do get the ball bounce, the right way this time around. But, statistically, probably not. And so, going in and having to play an extra game, a road game against Tom Brady, you may scoff at it, but it's still something we've never done before. So that's just an extra variable that could knock us out. I will say this. I want to point out that this Eagles game, one thing that I would like to see Cowboys come out and just trounce them, but I'd also like them to the Eagles to start to think, well, that's how invaluable Hurts is. But to me, we were talking about which is, better. I don't think the difference between Minshew and Hurts is as big as between Rush and Prescott. So maybe it will, lull the Eagles into like a false sense of like, oh, well, we're going to knock them out because we're going to get Hurts. And you know what? You're not that much better. So that's what I'm hoping for. But as far as where we're going to go, I'll let Aidan, finish it off.
Send us home, Aidan.
Well, this is a little tough because I was going to go the route of just projecting over the rest of the season, because I don't want to predict playoffs. Because do I think the Cowboys are do I think the Cowboys are an absolute lock as a top 2 team in the NFC? Absolutely. Do I think they can make the NFC Championship? Absolutely. Do I think I can make the Super Bowl? Absolutely, I do. Do I project it? Like, playoffs are just so fickle that any team can lose to any team on any year. And also, you put us in a bad spot where I'm not going to predict the Cowboys to lose in playoffs.
Oh,
because
now it's my fault, Aiden. Okay, all right. We'll see how this goes.
Okay, let me just say, I think all three teams here projected the Cowboys to at least make the NFC Championship. 2 of them projected a Super Bowl. I mean, playing the odds. Anyway, I'm not going to do that. What I'll say, I'll give an in-depth analysis of how I think the regular season is going to go. Cowboys, like I think a lot of us have said, going to absolutely dominate the Eagles. I'm going to make some bold predictions here. AJ Brown held to less than 40 receiving yards. Devontae Smith has a good game. But AJ Brown, less than 40 receiving yards, no touchdowns. Trayvon Diggs locks them up. Dak Prescott hangs 5 touchdowns on the Eagles. Cowboys win, let's go 41-17. Next week. No, I know. I'm
waiting for the whole, and then they get bounced in the first round of the play.
Okay. No, I said I'm not predicting play. Okay, also, let me just say a 24-point win over the Eagles isn't that much more ridiculous than the Cowboys making the Super Bowl. So moving on.
Throwing shade at us.
Moving on to the Titans game, I'm not going to give a score for this, but what I'll say is I think it's going to play out similar to the Bears game. I think early it's going to be somewhat of a defensive matchup, like not a lot, and it's not going to be a super high-scoring game. Derrick Henry, he's going to expose the Cowboys, but I also think Tannehill's going to be able to use his legs and open it up a little bit. With that said, I think the Cowboys win by a couple scores. It's not a super convincing game. And then they rest their starters against the Commanders. Commanders get the win. And so, cliffhanger, where are the Cowboys at that point? 5th. That's how I predict the end of the season. We're 5th. Yes.
So, to be clear, you're fine turning in the test at this point. Like, I'm the teacher, and I'm like, are you sure? So you're turning in the test right now, Aiden. You're good.
And then the Cowboys make the Super Bowl. That's my
it's the SATs. You don't got to answer every question.
Just you get a lot of points for just putting your name on.
So you all kind of painted a little bit of a picture, kind of told a little bit of a story. And so I've decided I was inspired by B2, and I'm going to equate each of you duos and what you told us to Christmas movies the way I see them. This is kind of our Christmas extravaganza. So that being said, Tony and Howman, you are The Night Before. I know that's not necessarily a Christmas movie that a lot of people are aware of. Shout out to my coworker, Pete Sweeney, who is the me from our chief site at SB Nation Arrowhead Pride. He recommended this to me. He actually bought this for me last year because he was like, you have to watch it. And so you're kind of the new fresh flavor. I hadn't seen it. So now it's kind of a part of my new annual rotation. And you're here, right? You're ready. Like, this is truly The Night Before with these, sort of somewhat traditional, somewhat unexpected things that are all going to happen. And I think you both kind of understood that and identified that. So I give you a lot of credit for that. Team B2, Team B Squared, Killer Bees, Brandon and Brandon, any Hallmark Christmas movie. Like, you guys are just kind of wholesome and wonderful.
And DJ Tanner was in it.
And, and kind of just delightful. I really just kind of felt inspired to, and Brandon, you more than anybody, B2, leaned into the Christmas spirit of this all, not just within this answer, but all throughout the night. So, some questionable casting, but it always lands, it always hits, and it always somehow, some way has 30 million people watching it. So, good for you guys. Chris and Sturch, Home Alone. I mean, I felt like you guys are kind of alone in what you're saying, because everybody's like, oh man, they're gonna do it, but you guys are like, no, we're gonna kick their ass. Like, we are going to put those mounts in our office. Like, I am so sick of this. And I love the routes that all of you kind of painted, because it truly is the most spectacular path possible. Beat Tom Brady for the first time, Chris. Get that off your chest. Maybe he does retire. Sorry, Sturch. You send Tom Brady into formal retirement. I want to personally beat the Eagles in the divisional round. I don't want to play the Eagles in the NFC Championship, because that's the bugaboo for the Cowboys. I want them to get over the bugaboo in Philly, the place where every Eagles fan says the Cowboys cannot win. I want the win to come there, because I want the title game to be all the way out west. I want the Cowboys, like this whole thing started, to head out to San Francisco to bury Kyle Shanahan with a ticket to the Super Bowl on the line. And then I want Mike McCarthy to rip roar a "How about them Cowboys" in the locker room the way Jimmy did in 1992, Brandon Clements, not 1993. I don't care about any calendar years around here.
Oh, come on.
Danny and Aiden, Jingle All the Way, a phenomenal film, but something that has a semblance of realism, right? The struggles and the plights of parenthood, and getting a toy for your child. And then at the very end, sorry, spoiler alert, Arnold Schwarzenegger gives the toy to a kid, right? He's like, look, I can have this for my son, but like, I got this costume. Like, life is good here. You take this. It's a really kind of realistic movie in that particular sense. But my favorite Christmas movie is Home Alone. So I'm going to give the Roundtable win to Chris and Sturch. Congratulations. It's the holidays. It's Christmas. And Sturch, you said no one's going to give us this win because everyone's going to say we're too optimistic. Now is the time, as Kevin McAllister's mother said to John Candy, the season of perpetual hope. That is where we are at, Dave Sturchio.
Absolutely. You know what? There's a lot of people that have everybody looks and they laugh at the Cowboys, but guess what? I'm here to tell you that me and Chris are the sticky bandits, and we're going to steal a Super Bowl this year, my friend. That's what we're doing out here. We are stealing a Super Bowl right there. It's going to be one heck of a ride. And look, we can fall flat on our face, I'm sure, but it feels really good right now.
It's the best Christmas movie of all time, so I'm glad you picked us to be that.
I do want to say along these lines, Sturch, a few months ago, you had a tweet that was really beautiful. I'm going to butcher it so you can remind us what it was, but it was something like, someday, all of the one and done, someday, all of the hasn't happened since whatever. I don't know when that day's coming, but someday that day's going to come and those jokes are going to die.
It's just to the point where that is, and it's true, that is the ammo for every non-Cowboys fan, even some Cowboys fans, right? That's the ammo. That's the thing you can hang your hat on for basically your entire existence. And in that moment, when Dak Prescott's at the podium with his backwards Super Bowl hat on, yeah, he's going to wear it backwards. That's what's going to happen. He's going to wear a backwards Super Bowl hat, and everybody's going to say, well, now what? What do we do now? Like, they're going to be up in like Ricky Bott. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. What are we supposed to tell them now? Like the Cowboys, once they win the Super Bowl, they got nothing. It's over. The jokes are over. It's finally done. We can all rejoice. I hope to see each and every one of you at the parade, by the way.
Does anybody feel robbed? Obviously, Chris and Sturch do not. Aidan, you kind of submitted the worst attempt at this whole thing.
I'm just not going to play into your games here, RJ.
Aidan, you were like, I can't wait to jump on the round table. You know the games. You know the sort of tango you signed up for.
I mean, I don't think my prediction would go over well, so I'm refraining. I played it strategically. I played it strategically.
To the point of reality, will the Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl? Probably not. Like, if we're like to Aidan's point, like they probably won't. Like, Sturch, if you had to bet your mortgage on the Cowboys or the field, what would you bet on?
The field.
Right, like it's very hard. It's a very difficult thing.
It's hard to win on Sunday in Week 15, let alone the Super Bowl. Like, what are we talking about here? It's very hard to win a football game, let alone the one game left. Like,
Danny, do you feel like y'all should have been the Grinch, and maybe Aidan is your Cindy Lou Who?
No, I think you did a great job, and I think that's very appropriate because this is basically Sturch on Twitter at every halftime.
I feel so
that is by
bad
far
for the
moment of the night.
Audience.
Very, very well done, Danny Phantom. I will give you your flowers.
Tony, have you seen The Night Before? You have famously not seen any movie.
I have not seen The Night Before.
Oh
no.
My God, watch it tonight. That's your homework assignment. It is fantastic.
Tony, I promise you will watch that movie and text every friend in your life that you love them. Like that will be how you end that particular movie.
Are you a fan of Miley Cyrus?
Yeah, I guess.
She's phenomenal in that movie. Go watch it.
Howman, do you feel like you should have been a different movie, you and Tony?
Well, I think we should have been the winners, and so I think we should have been Die Hard, which is the best Christmas movie objectively.
Which one of you is John McClane between you and Tony?
I think we're both John McClane. We both embody the
can't
spirit
both be
of
John
it.
McClane. Okay, you just can't do that. And
I haven't seen that one either.
I will say this, and guys,
Tony, you've never seen Die Hard?
Nope.
You don't.
Oh my God.
RJ, listen, I'm going to have to expose you right now. Okay. RJ Ochoa, our fearless leader here at Blogging.
Oh, yeah. I'm
has
fine with
never,
this,
ever seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. He's
totally
never
Man.
seen it. He doesn't know who Clark W. Griswold is. He is a Christmas fraud, everybody.
RJ.
That's a good one.
Chevy Chase's best character is Pierce in Community.
Caddyshack.
I'm totally on board with this. But I did go to Cane's, and their whole theme this time of year is apparently National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Love
So
it.
I have seen the Holding the Lights electrocuted thing.
gotta watch
B2,
the
do you have a Hallmark movie that you would like to be B2?
All of them. Listen, they're always on and on point 24/7, just like mine and Brandon's points. So I'll take the win on that one.
Wow. Brandon Clements, do you feel like that aptly describes you guys? Or do you feel like you should have been, I don't know, like Frosty the Snowman? Like there are a lot of choices here. Any direction we could have gone in.
Elf.
I mean, I always like Buddy the Elf. I mean, that's always a classic.
Also a lame movie.
Very upbeat, you know?
I'm sick of Elf. I'm really sick of
I don't
it.
like Elf.
I'm sick. Like we don't have to hear the quotes a million times. We don't have to hear like Santa, I know him, blah blah. Like okay, it's been done, it's been said. That's Will Ferrell is hilarious, but he has
Every
cursed
good
our
Christmas
lives
movie
because
has
everybody
Home Alone.
references his movies. So
Come on.
You're an angry
Buddy the
elf.
Elf, man.
He is an angry. There you go. Perfect done. Perfectly done, Howman.
wow. Who wants to pick the noise that Tony gets to make? I'll let anybody who wants it take it.
I thought we had somebody already pick
Tony.
it. I was doing a mustard.
You know what, Tony?
Elf.
I would like you to give us the sound of a polka because in Home Alone,
Polka.
yeah, in Home Alone, John Candy is part of a polka band. So I would like you to give us some sort of polka, Christmas polka, and send us into Cowboys Eagles on Saturday night. Unless you have a better suggestion, Tony Catalina.
I like John Candy, so I can do a little polka.
You can't just say the word. Like you have to really
That's
actually
what it
do
is.
something.
That's what you're getting.
That is very
No,
I don't
Danny.
even. I'm
Okay.
not familiar.
All right, Tony. Danny did the Kevin scream that Mrs. McAllister does. I would like you to give us that scream. I want you to put your hands over your cheeks and as high pitched, shriekly as you can and do it.
Wake his wife
Give us
up.
a Kevin the way Mrs. McAllister does in Home Alone, and I want you to direct it to Chris and Sturge since they were Home Alone and they won.
All right. Kevin!
You have to do the hands. That's the whole point. That's like the signature.
That's
thing.
two separate scenes, brother.
Yeah, that's not the same scene.
Aiden, nobody asked you. Your answer sucks. This is up to Tony. What are you doing? You need to slap your face or that's you don't have to slap your
I
face.
don't
You have to
think
hold
any
your
of us
face.
know what he's supposed to do.
Hold your face and say Kevin. That's what we want.
I'm missing it.
You got to be Kevin and the mom, I guess.
Yeah,
Tony.
that's what we got to do. We got to combine them. I haven't seen the movie this holiday season. I need to rewatch and sort of refresh my memory. Maybe up there with Christmas Vacation.
Kevin!
That was oh my gosh.
Kevin.